Rinpoche, on behalf of Kagyu Samye Dzong, Cape Town, I would like to warmly welcome you and thank you so much for coming to see us. I think my voice is loud enough. We welcome you very much here in our Cape Town Centre. We're very privileged to have you here. Lama Yeshi emailed me, so did Lama Zangmo, and they said I must make sure that when you're in Cape Town, you come to our centre. So we're very, very happy to have you here. We also would like to thank you very much for the hundreds and thousands of prayers that you have devoted to the swift return of Akong Rinpoche, and we very much appreciate that. And we would also like you tonight to please, in your talk to us, please tell us a little bit about how we can continue Rinpoche's work in Africa and what we can do to fulfill Akong Rinpoche's dream in Africa. Thank you very much, and I hope you have a wonderful visit here.
I'm very happy today as well, because everything just feels so positive and uplifting right now. This is my very first time visiting Cape Town, South Africa, and I'm excited to finally. So I'm here at this very moment to have some in-depth and meaningful discussions and conversations with this center about Bodhicitta. Bodhicitta is something that many of you here are probably already quite familiar with to some extent. But it's also possible that some individuals may not fully understand it. In fact, what we commonly refer to as bodhicitta, in its very essence, is this Shakyamuni Buddha taught 84,000 different Dharma gates. But the essence, the ghee of all these 84 zero teachings, if we condense them all, they are teachings on bodhicitta. Therefore, whether it is, in fact, even in terms of broad and comprehensive theoretical understanding or actual practice, such as in real-world situations, the doctrine of bodhicitta, it should be said, it is absolutely very important for everyone. Not only for those who practice Mahayana Buddhism, it is extremely important, something to always remember. More importantly, for everyone in this world. This is true for every living creature on earth, regardless of their species or background, and it applies equally. Its value is truly immeasurable. As we all know by now, we live on this planet Earth, the only world we truly know. Regarding skin color, there are white people, black people, and yellow people too. If we divide by region, for example, if we look at the data separated by geographical, there is Africa, Asia, Europe, as well as the Americas and Oceania, the 5 continents in total. From the perspective of individual countries, there are more than 200 recognized countries in the world. And when it comes to our cultures, as we know in particular, they are vastly different. There are so many with great diversity. So from the perspective of a broad and diverse range of different types and customs, it seems we are all unrelated to one another on this planet. Well, you know, everyone has their own unique heritage present throughout their lives. He has some of his own distinctive culture and language as well. On this topic specifically, let's take a closer look. The renowned Indian philosopher and Buddhist master Shantideva, who lived in the 8th century, in his work, The Way of the Bodhisattva, Shantideva explores the path and practices of a bodhisattva. In this particular treatise, a very important and significant statement was indeed made. What exactly did he say? First, diligently contemplate and practice. Oneself and others are fundamentally equal. All wish to avoid suffering and seek happiness. Protect others as you would protect yourself. There is such a saying, as people often mention, and in fact, actually, he probably said this sometime around the 8th century during that particular period. But his ideas, it should be said after all, even now, as humanity has entered the 21st century, at this time, for people all over the world, from every continent, we should be able to draw from it the very essence of his thought. Therefore, this statement indeed shows that for all of humanity across the globe, on the surface, there are indeed many differences and distinctions between us. But the one thing we all have in common, every single one of us, we should first understand this principle. Once we truly understand this principle, then we need to thoughtfully and carefully reflect on it and do so very diligently. What questions should we reflect on? First of all, I would like to say something which is very important for all of us. Ourselves and others should be considered equal. In what ways are we equal? No matter whether we are from the East or the West, regardless of our backgrounds or origin, we all pursue our own happiness and try to avoid in our lives or in our bodies and minds these kinds of suffering. There is no difference between them at all. They are exactly the same. Because we share this commonality, we should always protect others, just as we protect each and every one of ourselves. This is a really very fundamental principle. On the surface, it may perhaps seem that this statement is very simple. But in reality, if we calm our minds and reflect on it, we realize, within this, there truly is such a profound meaning and significance. This is what in Mahayana Bodhisattva conduct, traditionally known as, means equality between self and others. In other words, we use a kind of perspective shifting thinking. This kind of empathy in psychology can also be referred to as self-other exchange. So what exactly does it actually mean to exchange self and others? For example, when we intentionally harm or even kill another person, causing them pain or suffering, if at that moment we are able to put ourselves in their shoes, if I were them, for example, and if someone came to take my life, to kill me, to end my life, just imagine what kind of suffering and pain that would truly be. At that moment, you could feel that other people's lives are also extremely precious. Self-other exchange, or what we just covered, we and others are exactly the same. All want happiness, not suffering. This concept is actually indeed the Bodhicitta, a key method of revision if we study Buddhism by exploring its teachings and philosophy, or if we practice Buddhism by applying its principles in our daily lives. There is a truly profound and significant meaning to it, indeed truly. I see that nowadays might talk about things like compassion, empathy, and genuine acts of kindness qualities that truly matter. But actually, even more important is bodhicitta, especially since bodhicitta is directly related to the liberation of every single sentient being throughout the entire universe. If we Buddhists do not understand this principle, then maybe our study isn't profound. Bodhicitta includes the bodhicitta of aspiration and the bodhicitta of action. The term bodhicitta of aspiration means that from now on, I vow to liberate countless sentient beings and to help them reach the true state of enlightenment. This is making a vow. This is called the bodhicitta of aspiration. Many of us understand this in theory. Then, with the bodhicitta of aspiration, we need to practice bodhicitta of action. The bodhicitta of action means vowing to liberate countless sentient beings and help them reach the true state of enlightenment. On the foundation of making such a vow, we put it into actual practice. Through generosity, ethical discipline and patience, as well as concentration, diligence, and wisdom, the 6 paramitas, we are always making a continuous and dedicated effort in this way, consistently striving to improve. And if you have truly and sincerely generated the Mahayana mind with deep conviction and dedication, then you may no longer indulge in personal pleasure, laziness, or slackness, including many different and important reasons for personal self-protection. These may not necessarily be entirely appropriate. Some people may perhaps think that for various reasons, benefiting others, although it is a very good attitude, but our own self-esteem, our sense of self and our personal sense of identity, a strong, resilient, and courageous sense of self, this is certainly even more important. Because having self-confidence and self-reliance is indeed, without question, so when it comes to benefiting sentient beings, some people may feel an inner resistance, or they may feel that their selfishness often, sometimes, comes into conflict with the altruistic mind. At such times, it becomes impossible to do altruistic activity. Although we have these thoughts, whether these thoughts are actually correct or not, after all, we should also really carefully examine them. Because if we study this very seriously and sincerity, some of the things and events that have happened throughout the long course of human history, when we look back on them later in our memories, are not necessarily correct. Even though we have such habits, if these habits are truly correct, then we should certainly continue to uphold them. But if how we think, even though it has been passed down for hundreds or even thousands of years until today, but this idea may be, for me, if it is bad for all life in the world, we should do our best. Change these old ideas and mindsets. Today, when we talk about all of humanity around the world, we say that everyone should be absolutely, truly equal. In many respects, we believe that human beings should pursue equal and shared development. This idea and this statement, maybe many people accept it. But if you look at this kind of statement now, maybe, just maybe, if you had said it 30 or 40 years ago, there would have been quite a few people. Perhaps this viewpoint, including between black and white people, in terms of various kinds of racial conflict and discrimination, perhaps at that time many people did not accept this viewpoint. I just arrived in Cape Town, South Africa yesterday. At that time, back then, honestly, many people were telling me that the highly respected, admired former South African President Mandela, he stayed in prison on that remote island for many years. Because in total, across 3 different prisons, he spent a total of 27 years there in that very place, over there. I had also read some of his biographies before. I kept thinking about it. It was always on my mind constantly. In fact, many events in human history, many of these historical facts also prove that our views, some are in fact correct and some are not. Of course, regarding this issue, if you have different opinions or perhaps see things another way, you can bring them up during the Q&A session. But from that particular point in time, you could definitely say, without much doubt, I suppose, because these were things that actually happened in real history. During that period in history, white people enforced strict segregation laws to keep black people separated from them, and this kind of thinking was actually considered justified at that time. For white people, it was seen as the correct thing to do. But today, at this very moment, right now, although different countries may, of course, have somewhat different perspectives on this particular issue, for the vast majority of people out there, in most situations, we feel that as humans coexisting on this planet, if we avoid suffering and seek happiness, it should be the same. There is consensus about this. Of course, the things that happened back then, in fact, might have involved some political factors and some religious elements, and also the mindset of people at that time, including the ideas and various circumstances of some rulers. I often recall rather intriguing, this is also a sentence that I personally attach a great deal of importance to. It was by by Archbishop Desmond Tutu, who won the Nobel Prize in 1984. He once notably said this during a famous speech delivered back in New York many years ago. When the early white Christian missionaries first arrived in Africa many years ago, they had the Bible in their hands, while we black people had the land. The white missionaries told us to pray together as one united community, to join our voices in prayer, in harmony. Then we just close our eyes and pray. Later, when I opened my eyes, in fact, indeed, some different and opposite situations have occurred. The Bible was still firmly in our hands, but the land had ended up in the hands of the white people. So perhaps it could be said that this statement, since many of our listeners today are indeed white, you might, of course, have a different perspective, But today, I am speaking from the standpoint of, or rather from a fair perspective of equality between self and other. If we try to think from another's point of view, what kind of resonance does this bring everyone? But I think that if Archbishop Desmond Tutu were here with us in this moment right now, 30 years already passed. If he opened his eyes and looked again, perhaps many of the Bibles in black people's hands would be altogether gone. And much of the land that was in white people's hands would also be gone, returned to black people. Because after Nelson Mandela finally came to power in 1994, after decades of apartheid, he also said in his inaugural speech at the time, now on this land, we have finally, after all this time, truly become our own masters. Since then, a considerable amount of land, indeed, has also returned to the hands of its truly rightful owners. Where did a large number of young people in this particular context actually come from? Whether black or white, no matter, but the Bible securely in their hands or the faith in their hearts has basically been abandoned now. So now, at this very moment, in the UK, in the US, and also in Africa, in any country, without exception, those who truly genuinely have faith, whether in Christianity, Islam, Buddhism, and so on, the number of people who hold these beliefs is decreasing. So if we look at it again from Tutu's perspective now, perhaps many situations in the world have also changed in various ways. This is what I wanted to say just now. We humans should be equal, but in a certain era, far back in the distant past, or under the influence of certain particularly influential ideas, there might be several different changes possibly occurring. I've heard that in Africa it's not as severe, but in some other places, including Europe and America, at that time, their brutality toward black people was truly indeed terrifying. Even in some places where I have lived, there was a lot of ethnic discrimination or between people, the abuse of his servants and some of the brutal killings he committed against them is exactly the same as how we kill animals today in the present day. In fact, if we use the concept of Bodhicitta, measuring things by the standard of equality between self and others, we can say that this is completely wrong. So when we cultivate Mahayana Bodhicitta deeply in our hearts and minds toward all sentient beings, what I want to emphasize even more today is the abuse of animals by humans and the killing of other sentient beings. These are behaviors that seriously violate the spirit of Bodhicitta. So many of the views held by people today believe that, aside from humans, as we all know, in particular, actually, domesticated sheep, cattle, and even some aquatic animals in the sea, for example, as well as a variety of birds, for instance, except for very few, such as some peace doves, except for a few animals. Most people think to be eaten, they should be killed, that humans are supposed to eat them, after all, without considering they experience the same pain, without realizing that they themselves also need happiness. In this regard, although we humans now consider ourselves as higher beings, IQs high, however, our way of thinking, our view has not kept up with this truth at all. Therefore, for those of us who practice bodhicitta, if we simply wishing for personal well-being and comfort in this lifetime alone, such a mindset absolutely cannot in any sense truly be called bodhicitta at all. True bodhicitta means wishing for all sentient beings to attain the highest and most supreme form of happiness in life. This is the very core of the true teachings of bodhicitta, because these animals, like vulnerable people centuries ago, are similar to some extremely fragile ethnic groups in the world. Just like those peoples then all suffered at human hands, experiencing various cruelty, abuse, or even killing. Their precious lives were cut short. So what happens daily worldwide now are countless acts harming sentient beings. From the perspective of Mahayana children of Buddha, this is extremely cruel and deeply tragic. Regarding protecting all animals, we who study Mahayana Buddhism, whether Westerners or Easterners, should all seriously reflect on this. Why do I say this? Those of us studying Tibetan Buddhism and many following different Western traditions may have a bad habit of frequently eating meat. Of course, everyone likes eating meat, but actually, directly or indirectly, it involves harming sentient beings' life. If we can't maintain long-term vegetarianism, we should practice abstaining 4 days monthly or half-monthly, or at least 1 day weekly. Through such practice, we train and change our mindset, because the animal meat we consume is actually consuming sentient beings' lives. There's no difference. According to the Shurangama and Nirvana Sutras, regarding Buddhists refraining from meat, I most admire Chinese Buddhism, because Chinese Buddhism, with over 1,000 years of history, has maintained a very complete and perfect tradition until today. I believe all compassionate believers worldwide should learn from them. We should also reflect repeatedly ourselves. Chinese vegetarianism, I've studied this aspect before. Actually, initially, it was related to Chinese culture. At first, there was a book called the Huangdi Neijing. The Huangdi Neijing states, 5 grains nourish, 5 fruits assist. This means 5 types of grains provide primary nutrition for the body, playing the main nourishing role. 5 types of fruits also aid digestion and benefit bodily health. Later came many Confucian influences, including ideas from thinkers like Confucius and Mencius. Then came Emperor Wu of Liang. At that time, specifically in 511 CE, he addressed Chinese Buddhists, especially writing abstaining from alcohol and meat, an article advocating abstaining from alcohol and meat. Then he issued a nationwide decree that all monastics, initially monastics could not eat meat or drink alcohol. This influence gradually extended to all Buddhists, because Emperor Wu of Liang at that time had very strong governing ability, including his princess, who later became a bhikshuni before Patriarch Bodhidharma. Their family's Buddhist connection was extraordinary. Through his influence, until today, it has been 1,504 years. At that time, on your African continent, there might not even have been primitive tribes here. White people arrived only about 300 years ago. So China has maintained vegetarianism from 500 years ago until today. I'm just curious, other ideas might spread temporarily at first, but eventually people leave and things cool down. Perhaps when kings die, things revert. But This vegetarian view continues until today. In other Chinese Buddhist monasteries, including many lay practitioners, almost none eat meat. I just asked earlier, do Chinese Buddhists in Cape Town eat meat? They answered me, not very much. So now they're perhaps influenced by other Buddhist traditions. They don't eat very much. Eating less might happen, but I think this is probably due to other influences, not the influence of traditional Chinese Buddhism itself. I used to really love eating meat too, especially meat buns. I particularly love them. Later, I gave up meat. After giving up meat, once I forgot and had already eaten at lunch. I had already quit meat, then forgot and ate a meat bun again. Then in the evening, I remembered, oh, I ate a bun again at lunch today. I had already completely quit. I thought there was nothing to do. I had already swallowed it. Since then, I've been quite careful, and now it's been over 10 years. So sometimes our habits are very difficult to break initially, but we also think about this meat, if it's just packaged and sold in markets, maybe everyone feels it's like other packaged products, no different from fruits and such. But maybe if you realize this meat is actually part of each sentient being's body, and cutting off body parts is also very painful. When they are killed for us humans, imagine what kind of pain they experience and what kind of price they pay. At this time, we have room for reflection. Some people think not eating meat means insufficient nutrition. My health isn't good, I must eat meat. But they don't realize that meat contains many diseases. If you eat vegetarian regarding health, I've specially studied this before. So regarding all aspects of humans, including your body structure, various aspects within the body, such as protein, fat, and many other aspects, vegetarianism from nutritional and medical perspectives should be very meaningful. In this way, we indirectly practice life release. And this kind of bodhicitta, though you may not say it verbally, you're actually doing it through practical actions. So why do I say Chinese Buddhism is great in this regard? They may or may not verbally speak of bodhicitta, but in reality, so many Buddhists, including current statistics, showing China alone has 100 million to 300 million. I don't know the exact number, but if so many people truly eat vegetarian, how many lives are saved? This is also content worth reflecting on for us Buddhists. Regardless, we have generated Mahayana Bodhicitta, or even if you haven't generated the intention, we should use Mahayana thinking to help sentient beings. This is extremely important. Maitreya Bodhisattva has a text called the Ornament of Mahayana Sutras. There's a line in the Ornament of Mahayana Sutras that left a deep impression on me. How does it go? Children of Buddha relying on supreme progress, mature all sentient beings. To generate one virtuous thought, never weary for millions of kalpas. There's such a line, meaning us Mahayana Buddhists, we who have generated bodhicitta should use the greatest effort to mature and liberate sentient beings. For one sentient being to generate one virtuous thought, serving as their attendant for millions of kalpas without weariness. When we help someone, no matter how many years or how much time we spend trying, we shouldn't develop aversion or fatigue in our hearts. I think this spirit is something many of us should reflect upon. So I hope many people who might think they practice bodhicitta quite well, cultivating bodhicitta in bed should be fine, or when practicing on the Dharma seat, feeling like you've truly become a bodhisattva. But when we need to save some pitiful sentient beings, such as helping leprosy patients, helping AIDS patients, helping some malaria patients, or helping some orphans and homeless elderly, or some poor people and beggars around us. At such times, our so-called Mahayana Bodhicitta might be nothing but a bundle of selfishness. Perhaps you haven't thought that others need your love. Sometimes I see some people in the world who have no religious faith at all, yet do tremendous charitable work unconditionally, accomplishing very great things. At such times, through their examples, I reflect on myself. I consider myself a Mahayana Buddhist, and I feel very ashamed. I feel that although I also consider myself to have generated Mahayana Bodhicitta regarding certain matters compared to some people without faith, whose loving actions I don't measure up to, at such times I feel I still need to continuously learn and practice. Here, I also want to share with everyone that this Dharma Center is Akong Rinpoche Center. And for us, as a Tibetan spreading Dharma in the West, he truly provided many young people, roughly from the 1980s and 1990s until his parinirvana, for many young Tibetans, including those without tuition money. He provided tuition for many people. Regarding our gaps in language and writing, he made tremendous contributions. Of course, for each of you disciples, from the Guru's blessings and lineage, the Guru's Dharma kindness to you, including from taking refuge onward, his Dharma kindness is even more extremely difficult to repay for everyone. He also manifested impermanence before sentient beings, unfortunately departing from this world. On one hand, for everyone, this is a very painful matter, but on the other hand, we should transform such grief into motivation. As his successor disciples, we should unite with even greater effort and study with greater effort the teachings he passed down. Everyone should work together to promote his lineage. This is extremely important. Over 10 years ago, my Guru, His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok, also passed away. At that time, our institute had close to 10,000 people, and his lineage disciples were very numerous in various countries. For each of us disciples, in everyone's heart, there was like a red sun setting behind western mountains, as if shrouded in darkness. We felt directionless and at a loss, having this feeling of darkness and emptiness. But later, all of us discussed together. We said, to fulfill the Guru's wishes, grief is useless, crying is useless. We must continue the Guru's lineage teachings and persist continuously. Later, all the Khenpos and Taokos at our institute repeatedly discussed and held meetings to manage the institute founded by the Dharma King even better and study with the same effort as when he was alive. Now, 10 years have passed, and we continue studying and spreading Dharma as always. So, based on my own experience, if I may offer a suggestion to everyone, all of you who are his lineage disciples should regularly discuss and explore together how to inherit the essential teachings he passed down, his lineage, his Dharma centers, his spirit of spreading Dharma and benefiting beings. How do we continue these for 10 years, 100 years, even 1,000 years? This is our greatest way to repay the Guru's kindness and our greatest offering to him. Perhaps we might build him a stupa or make any other offerings to him, but to him, these may not be very important. As long as we continue our center's Dharma lineage, this is probably most important to a guru. Otherwise, I often see that after some gurus pass away, centers close and disciples scatter. Sometimes various conflicts may arise among them, unpleasant things. In such cases, for the guru, this may not be a good way to repay kindness. So generally speaking, a guru's departure is normal. Even Buddha departed. Each of us will eventually depart too. But most importantly, the truth must be passed to countless people with karmic connections. This is our responsibility. Next, I use Tibetan to recite the lineage of the 37 practices of the Bodhisattva.
Namo loga shoraya, kanga chukan rogo mezu kyang, rogo tonda shida tsonza pe, lamam chodan shere zomgon la, tadar kosam kipe shamzarlo, pandem jongna zoba sanjin. Tam chubzir te shonga te yana, te ilalai sila ranglai pe, jate namji laglam shebra sha, tanja chacha nyaka tobindara, dagzan korom tsole jashish. Nyandam sanda yarame pana, nyansam gombar jate laglai yana, nyingi choglan dor tsirtara yo, jai chogla jirdam yataram. Landur jipu tamag manag jan bhayar pawa jate lalan yan ngan pawe nyomo ramji enra nama mebe givjong ngin riba tawe chula ngishi wimba tembar jate lalan yan yaran jobum zashi sozurum jaran babe jipa nur zashir dali li jimjong kanam shim jombo wara tsendablo dar jate lalan kandang jogna tiksum perinjir jang tusum kumbusha nyam jirwe shamdar nyar jame ber jirjebe chogun pongwar jate lalan yan kanjik tena nipa zanjir Yonda yarngur lastar bejirwe shangin dambarang liwe jang chibran zambar jatre lalay rang kora zonran jambi min jirdan lai sachik chobran tepshir ganglar kyabna mablava kumchok jamchur jatre lalay yana shindu zokung ansor dungun digbali kimdrewe tobek song tepshir sholawa bjam digbali nama mabshir jatre lalay yana choksum dewa sartse zirba jang yatsam jikin jikbi chuchin yana nama manjir tari kumbang chogo tonda nirar jatre lalay Tome tine dala tsewa ye marnum dingna dade chusha tepshan tayi semchan rashi sharab shanchu semchan jatre lalay dungur mali daden dole zhong zhobashan jejaman zemlen tepshir dade janji dungur dawa yang do jewa jatre lalay sidang do changwan gu dakkanora tamcham chokum chokdam jingla yang lidang longshu teksum gewa nam tela hungwar jatre lalay dala nipa chongzin mevchan da kandok dakam go chushe na yang nyar jagwan ka tiyi dikba nam dala lembar jatre lalay Gajik dagla marnyan na zobar tongsum jabar jobar shena yang shamba semjir laryan teni ki yondam jobar jatre laglayin roman dipa waisan gajik am sanim chijang tsingan manay tela gev shi jinda shi ji kibaranda bar jatre laglayin daka jang chibar kyang dala da jun tawar shena na jib daba wala mavjan da labar sevar jatre laglayin randa mamba nyamba mambi jewa yengar jarwan ko nito shena yang lamavjan da kipil da ni ji shor lembar jatre laglayin soy pongjang takda mayin Tsapchin natang don jip tapjang laran roma rokan tuk tagla lemshi jang jimba me bar jate laglan nyambar chawjang roma shi dor nam to bai nonra topjir no chape param chir nyambo me zgne khamba me bar jate laglan rang ge dar chawo mathar rang ge dang chawo mathar na shiro chawo tar jang peron jiro te shiro shamdar nyar jam pong go rang jin dor jate laglan don be yond do pe yond lens chetang ra chatum sha chang chepan peron jir kala jin chak jip yong bo nam chalar pong jate laglan chirtar na wanda tak rang ge sem yod ne chubim ta dang tenyi sin zonzum sammarna yala mabshe jatre lolan yit goma yirdam chapana yerki tikin jatsun chibjandam ziber na dember mertat jenchak pamar jatre lolan dungman na tsur malum wesir taran na dember zongwe atan chata tepshir mamtan kibi mamtan kindam chabi tse chirta jatre lolan shangjim do be li jam tong go na shirong bor na nar mo chok tepshir landar narman mare jimba tong jatre lolan tsatum me ber randun manjib na jandun taban do ba kap mo ne tepshir chibandam ba me ba yitrum chong jatre lolan Gave Longshun Dober Jate, Anoshi Tamcher, and Terdam Song, there's a collage me by Zopa Combat Jate Lale, Rondon Baji. Ujabenyara, Amgola, Mesur, Lorter Son Tona, and Roganton, the Yondam Johnny, Sunji Sombat Jate Lale, and Janet after Number Lambdon. Nyomon number job receive Shinels and Mijele Anton de Bay, Santon Combat Jate Lale, and Sherman Portion, Zobasan of Tubermani, Tata Danjan Corzon Marto. Shirub gombar jate laglayin rangatara ranga maaftaga na chubaziki chumim shirch pe teshirgin da rangatara laktang nepaan jate laglayin nyomo wangir jate jandab ke nipa lana dagnin nyamjire thakba chela jibi kaansak nipa marmar jate laglayin yanar nyepkar wanga panzan tsojir jan tuzum gombar shaya nyamjire mzashi jimdam jandak tenno na chabar pongar jate laglayin tsibonsaka jazam chikjir jan yara chigi shotsir nyamjire teshir jan jiyo tongmo gongwe tsiksir pongar jate laglayin nyomo gomna nyembo lokkawe chanshi ki Nimbum Sonzone, Chasson Yumbo, Tamor, Kema, Tamburn, Shepherd, Jatelolem, Dona, Count of Shurum, Chiranka, Semjan, Genda, Tanda, Shijan, a Jandon, Trupar, Jatelolem, Terter, Zombie, Truboga, and I'm tying road, Don Sargis and Coros. Ngarnambara taqba sherab jib shanchib ngwar jatri laglan yamdor jib tamchir namlik song baton tamba nam jak song garjim rong jatri nam ji laglan samchit jatri lam lar lomdon ton don ko lo jo man jaw jawa chong yu chiram keba jib devjur ma ji jam do don tambi song lap tembi jatri laglan chirmil lagbar sa gonjin jatri shobar lapchin nam lo man dam on dan de tang ko kayu shen gar dam mamder la song ni bi tamba nam ji zopram za tak sur television gewin roa kan ton dam kan zo shanchib sem chok chitan jam thala mane be shari zong ko te dom sombar jiban da ranjan la pambi ton da long da rig ber ma zamba thome ngarchi renchen pugdo yarwa go